Welcome back to the second ISSB episode covering the Standard Chartered Singapore Marathon. I'm Adele, hosting for Inside Singapore Sports Business, the show that features key opinion leaders from Singapore's sports industry. This show is brought to you in collaboration with Sport Singapore and the Tote Board. Today, we will be looking at the commercial side of mass participation events, and we have come to the IRONMAN Asia office for insights. Let's get started. So we are here at the IRONMAN office, and we have with us the Singapore General Manager and Head of Sales of IRONMAN, Mr. Santoz Kumar. Thank you so much for joining us today, Santoz.
Thank you, Adele. Thanks for coming down. Looking forward to the discussion today.
Yeah, no, we're really happy to be here. I think last year, all of us were asking, is the Standard Chartered Singapore Marathon going to be happening in 2021? And you guys actually pulled it off.
Yeah.
So I'm sure a lot of our audiences would like to know, what was it like organizing the Standard Chartered Singapore Marathon in 2021 compared to previous years?
So, I guess we have to look at what happened in the last few years collectively to understand last year as a timeline. 2019, we had a great year, big year. We brought the event to be the first night race, one of the biggest participation. It was amazing, right? And then 2020 happened. So initially when 2020 happened, everybody was trying to just maybe console ourselves that it's only the first half of the year. Second half of the year, things will be fine. And our race was in December, so the initial impact was not really felt. But as the months progressed, when we went into lockdowns, which we've never heard of, when we saw people stocking up, things from NTUC and etc., we say, okay, this is different. So this year things are going to be changing. So we did pivot, we did adopt new ways to engage with our communities, but largely we were trying to figure out how do we engage people in person. So 2020 posed a very big challenge going into it. It was almost like the doors always closing and you know that you won't be able to make it through, right? And you need to find ways to still keep interactions going. But it ended very positively. There was phase 3, there was things that it's going to be opening up. 21 actually opened with a lot of optimism, right? And then we had waves of different variants come in, and that kind of derailed the plans, not only just for us, like in general. We were always asking, when are things going to open up? Can we actually return to do the full race at the full scale? Same situation that we are in right now. We're in a very optimistic situation for 22. We were in that same place last year. But this time round, we saw the doors were opening, but it was opening really slow. Sometimes it opens, and then suddenly it closes back, and then it starts to open. But we knew all along it's going to be better than 22. It's just that at what scale, what level was the biggest unknown.
Better than 20, you mean?
Yes, better than 2020, sorry. But fortunately or unfortunately, it just kept getting stretched. We only got the approval to do the event on the 2nd of November. We launched the event on 3rd November, and the event happened 4th and 5th December. So it was a really, really tight timeline. Yeah. There was a lot of iterations of the original plan. We had to continuously modify. The team had to be flexible to find new ways to engage the audience. What we eventually executed is nowhere close to what we started the year with, right? So think of it this way: you have a nice, plant, and you start trimming the plant. What you had in mind is very different from what you actually had at the year end. But nonetheless, it was still a very strong, good event, very positively, received. It gave a lot of hope to the industry. I had a lot of industry event organizers who reached out to say, congratulations, how did you guys do it? Are you able to share some learning with us? And it created a very positive, vibe for everybody. Like, okay, look, 22 is going to be a bigger year for the industry on its whole.
So Santoz, tell us more. I'm sure everybody wants to know, what were some of the challenges, and how did you guys actually pull off the 2021 SCSM.
Yeah. So the biggest learning for us from 2020 was that in-person is going to be an unknown for an unknown period of time, right? So we still had to keep things going. That's where we did continuous engagement through virtual club. So Singapore Marathon in 2020, what we did was we created a virtual platform to bring the community together. We engaged them through content. We were hosting weekly races and challenges. It is not a replacement of the in-person event. We never had it as a monetization product. It was really to keep the community spirit together, engage them through challenges. So we continued that for 21. We started the year, we were doing constant virtual races throughout the whole year. We were having small virtual events, engagements with the community. So there were always community touch points. There were things that was always done with the community, but it was all virtual versus physical. But when we got the approval, we were actually going to having something strong physically. So that's where a 4,000 participation event was approved. It was in line with the government regulations. Now, the regulation is such that it's 1,000 participants at a time. So what we had to do was we had to do the event over 2 days, and we had to do it over 4 different sessions. So in the morning, think of it as you have 4 hours to run 1,000 packs. In the evening, you have 4 hours to run another 1,000, the same that we did on Sunday. And together with that, we also had a very strong TV broadcast pillar that we created, which was very inclusive of the community. So when we looked at the core of what SCSM is last year, it was the 20th year anniversary for our partnership with Standard Chartered Bank. We wanted to celebrate that. And we wanted to celebrate the resilience of the community, how the pandemic effect was really going on. So the broadcast was to tell stories. We were telling color stories of individuals, inspiring stories, people who picked up running during the pandemic, people who have always been running and miss going to a race, and how did they adapt to the situation. We featured inclusive color stories as well. We had, at the event, ministers present, leading groups of runners. So it was a very nice, cohesive story that well knitted the community together. Yeah. So that became another highlight last year as well. So I would say it as the physical 4,000, the TV broadcast, which was on Channel 5, Saturday prime time, and the virtual club were the key components of 21.
So do you want to tell us a little bit more about these virtual runs? So 2021 was not the first time, but for people who are not so familiar with virtual runs, when did it start for SCSM, and how does it work?
Virtual run is not something new or that was born out of pandemic. It was always existing. Some people refer to it as digital race. You just sign up for it, you do your run remotely, you submit your results either through Strava or your tracking devices, and a digital race organizer will send you a t-shirt and medal. That's what was happening throughout. What we did was we didn't want to have a single or one point interaction in that sense. We really wanted to focus on the community, to help them train during this period of time, engage them, give them some milestones to work towards, because we didn't know when the end is. Like the pandemic could have ended in 6 months or 9 months, or now it's 2 years, and to train them for a race that may happen any point of time. So that's really where Virtual Club came into play for us. Hosting 5-kilometer race for this weekend, for example, or a 10 km run. We hosted interesting challenges like run for 30 minutes, go for a walk, hit certain distances. So that's really how we use virtual space to engage the audience. So in order to participate in it, you just need to have a tracking device like your smartphone or a watch that will record your activity that feeds into the platform itself. And by completing all these races and challenges, you earn reward points, which you can use to redeem for merchandise, gift vouchers, and etc. and so on. There was a lot of prizes to be won as well. We were giving out Apple iWatch. We had like really cool prizes. We had Nike vouchers and things that participants can win. And it's a way of rewarding and engaging the community. Virtual Club also helped us to engage a wider group of audience. We were not only in Singapore, We have close to 55 over countries participants participating in the virtual club platform. So again, it reached out to a wider group of audience. The platform had 28,000 users in 2020 when we ended. By the time in 21, we had close to 60,000 users on the platform. We had close to 140,000 virtual race participation. Now, these are all really big numbers, and we're really proud of what the team did to achieve these things. It's really difficult to engage people remotely and digitally. And there is this fatigue as well in the digital space. Yeah, right. So that's how it was for us for Virtual Club.
Yeah, but and yet you still had very high viewership on Facebook, right? When the actual race was.
So the race during the 4 sessions, the highlight session was on Saturday, 5 p.m., where we had our 5 km run. And during the run, we had speaker Tan Chuan Jin. We had inclusive running groups like Running Hour, where they have guide runners for visually impaired runners or challenged athletes. They guide them. We had Team SG participants. We had a lot of personalities, like Fandi Ahmad was down to run. He came there with his son. A lot of influencers were also down as well. So it really about bring the community together. And everybody was just excited to do something physically. And the content was so compelling. That's where we were able to air it on Channel 5 and also on our Facebook, which reached close to 3.3 million viewers. Very strong engagement for a 1-hour show. We had about 750,000 engagements. So people are liking, sharing, talking about it. People are, I miss Singapore. I want to come down to run. I miss the race. So again, it was a way for us to reach out to people that couldn't be here with us to participate physically. And the broadcast told the story and brought people into the race to help them, see what the community spirit is like.
Right. So, just very quickly, in terms of the physical race, and it's such a compelling story, right? You get approval like 2 days, 1 day before the race actually happened. But just very briefly, what would you say is, if any, was the main challenge of having that physical event, that large-scale physical event in 2021? Like, would you say social distancing? Was that difficult? Did everyone have to get tested? Like the logistics of that?
So there were key milestone decisions that was required. First thing was we had to go away from race to a run. So somewhere in the middle of the year, in August, we knew that, okay, we don't have enough time to do a physical road race, right? So we had to cross out the physical road race. We know that it's not going to be enough time to get the road closure approvals and those elements. And we went into the format of a run, a celebration run. So that's where we only did 5 and 10K. We didn't have a full marathon. We didn't have a half marathon. We didn't have an elite. It was really bring the community together. Let's go for a run. And that part of the decisions were made along the year. There were other elements as well we had to make decisions on. The big challenge really for us or even our government partners was really the evolving situation. Like nobody could really predict how things were going to go. Like when we had the cases in the airport come into play, when we had the cases in the Fisher report and how it was affecting the community and how it started to slow down, we take a step forward. It was really the snake and ladder that speaker, explained, or like our health minister explained, right? That was a situation. The challenge for us is we were cutting things down to a point where I have nothing else to cut anymore. Like if I were to cut anything, I'm not really going to have an event. And I don't have time to wait as well. So when we launched the event, it was really at the tail end. Like there's nothing else to stretch, nothing else to really cut, and a decision had to be made. So those were really the challenge, making that call, and during an evolving situation. So when we launched, we didn't know what the enhanced safe distancing measures are going to be for the event. So anybody who wants to participate, you need to actually do an ART test, submit the results before you can come down to do. Anyone who's involved, even the working staff, the crew, volunteers. So that was something new. So it was a model of, I think, vaccination differentiated events, right? So that was introduced. We had to make some changes to the way we run the event. like our Ekiden race category, which is a relay race. So you actually pass the baton to the next person, and then your team will run. It's supposed to be a team sport. 4 people come together, you pass something to the person, and the person passes to the runner 3 and runner 4. We had to eliminate that halfway after we launched because of these enhanced measures, like we need to reduce restrictions. So people were just running by themselves, and then they were digitally grouped together for their timing. So things had to still change and adapt. We couldn't wait for everything to fall into place before we go for the launch. So think of it this way: you already launched the spaceship, but as it's flying, you're still fixing things. And then, okay, you launch a satellite in space. So that was really what was happening.
So at ISSB, one of the questions we like asking our guests, for those of our audiences who are interested in the sports business, how are mass participation events like SCSM usually typically financed?
Yeah. Look, I think in general, all sports require different stakeholder support. The first one is you definitely need to have government support, depending on what you're doing. So if you're doing something that has a high impact public impact point, like for us, where we have road closures and so on, the government support is definitely required, right, to facilitate discussions or to have certain approvals in time for us to do. So it may not just purely be on the funding side of things, right? Of course, funding, it helps. Most of the time, the objective is to help get the event off the ground. Hopefully it becomes weaned off and self-sustaining and can commercially viable on its own. But there are a lot of other support that the government provides that's really key and important for sports events, facilitation especially. Then comes to other key stakeholders like your sponsors. You have different tiers, you have title, presenting, and other event partners. You need that support in order to make a commercially viable event. And of course for them, you also provide a lot of value on creating the connect with the community or the sports that you're doing. There are also different partners, not just purely coming on cash. There'll be people coming on value that they bring to the event in terms of the product or services. So for instance, for us, it is 100 plus where they have hydration, water, and the 100 plus. The amount of liters of water and isotonic drinks that we use, if you were to pay for it, is probably going to cost us $1 million just to go and buy and do all these things, right? So it's a 50,000 pax event. So there's a lot of strong values that you can get from partners as such as well. The other angles of monetization in mass participation, obviously, is your participants. So everyone who pays for it are paying effectively for running and the organization of it. It is not a sport like spectator where you can sell media rights, where you can sell the content and make money. For participation, sport content is an engagement tool. It's a way to tell your story. It's a way to reach out to more audiences. That's how it generally is. It isn't like football or NBA where I can sell my TV rights for billions of dollars and make money out of it. So what is really reliant on support from government, sponsors, your participants. Another key element would also be merchandise. So when you have 50,000 people buying your T-shirts and so on, that would be a good, strong revenue generator.
Right. Actually, so we call these mass participation events, but you also have the virtual runs.
Yeah.
Are those virtual runs now also considered then a mass participation event?
Yeah, I mean, generally you can still monetize that. There are virtual runs that happens for $10 or $15, $20, right? So there's an opportunity for that. But the way we see it is that those are one-off opportunities. What we really want to do is engage audience on a year-long basis. So you stay with us, you run with us, you're training with us. When we return to the full event, the propensity for you to do a physical in-person event is a lot higher. You're also prepared to do the physical event. When the world returns back to normal order, we don't have pandemic and it's really truly endemic, the virtual club becomes a training platform. So today, we launch for registration, you come into our website, you register for the race. Your next step should be to go to our virtual club to take up the training program, which is free. So you go through the training and then you come in to do the physical event. So it becomes a value or add-on. That is our approach and our strategy versus doing it as a one-off monetization model.
Wow, so it's like now virtual events, like your virtual runs and your virtual programs are a part of this huge mass participation
Ecosystem,
event
correct.
in the end. Wow, yeah,
And,
that makes
and
sense.
I think SCSM being like the big brother of running in Singapore regionally as well, we're able to do that. We're able to bring our international participants into it. So not only during the training phase we engage you, for the physical run, if you can't be present physically, you can still run remotely, whether it is from Boston or KL or Jakarta or Tokyo. You can be part of SCSM race weekend, but do the race category in your own country, right? So that's another opportunity that Virtual Club also presents.
Although I'm sure nothing beats the feeling of going through the finishing line with everybody.
Absolutely, right? And that's where Virtual Club also creates that the demand and the need for a physical event. So if I've been running virtually in Tokyo, I know one day I'm going to go down to Singapore to run the event physically because I've already done the virtual race. So I think that's where the extension goes out, the audience engagement goes out. It gives us another, brand building equity for the space. Yeah.
So now let's talk a little bit, since on the topic of virtual runs and digital runs. At ISSB, we have covered the metaverse, NFTs, and its role in sports. How do you see that?
Yeah. Well,
impacting?
NFT is a very exciting space personally, and there's a lot of hype around it. There's some really good, strong use cases as well, and the application for sport is very strong, but it is not directly applicable to all sports. So I'll give you an example. NBA launched NBA Top Shot, which is basically a platform for you to buy and sell NBA highlight moments as NFTs. Now these are very short clips, maybe 5 to 10 second clips of someone blocking or dunking and scoring, right? But it's highly tradable because these are high viewership moments that fans want to collect, and then they buy and sell. The same can be done for football. If you have a beautiful goal that was scored, you can buy and sell the NFTs. Think of it like physical digital cards have now become in the virtual space as an animated video concept that you can buy and sell. You can have proof of ownership, proof of trading, and so on. Like I could have a digital highlight that LeBron James buys from me, and then he sells to somebody because LeBron James is there. Somebody will pay a very high fee, so trading value goes up. But when you look at a mass participation event, the valuable things are like your personal best timing. So you just clocked 2 hours and 30 minutes for your marathon, let's say that, right? It's your personal best, like great, you've done it. But who is it valuable for? For you. Like, is that something that people will buy, trade, and sell? It's not a tradable asset. Let's talk about medals, the same thing. It's a high value element for you because you did the race, you want to collect the medal. But would people just want to buy and collect medals? So that's where the direct application may not apply. And we are exploring, like what can we do?
So IRONMAN would be exploring metaverse, NFTs for.
I think there is
SCSM?
opportunity for both metaverse and NFT. The metaverse is, I would say, a highly evolved virtual club kind of model, right? Like if you're able to, you run physically, but your avatar is running in the metaverse, for example. Maybe your avatar is wearing a really fancy shoe and gears and taking part in a metaverse race. You need to run physically in order for you to compete in the virtual metaverse space. So I think there are ideas and cool stuff that you can still explore. But the importance is, are you able to monetize it? Is there a commercial viability around it? It cannot just be a cool idea to explore. Is there an opportunity? NFT though does present itself a lot of potential, and we are in discussions to try and find good strong use case for us to use, and we're just working on it. It's like a puzzle, and it's a evolving puzzle as well. New elements come into play, good new case studies comes in, but then let's see where it goes.
Okay. So you think that NFTs might have more use cases for SCSM than the metaverse?
NFT is at a stage where it is more ready to be adopted, right? And you can today launch things on NFTs, in a very short period of time. The only thing is how valuable is your product, how scalable is it, and does it have the tradability? NFT needs a tradability in order to retain its value. Why art is tradable? Because it's limited and people want to buy and collect and so on. Same with trading cards. Like today, you can bring the Pokemon trading cards into NFT, and I can tell you it'll be a hit. It'll be like hundreds of millions of dollars because the audience is there, the tradability is there, the value is there, the IP is there.
I mean, the game itself is about trading.
Exactly, exactly. Now, Metaverse isn't in the same model. You need to build a lot of things from ground up, right? So you need to build like software layers. You need to build your proof of concept, your ideas. Like it's a lot more work required to exist in the Metaverse than to create a NFT product.
How do you think your community would respond to the blockchain, to incorporating NFTs? Do you think people are open? At least your long-term supporters, your participants, would they like it, or would they feel like it's not?
So,
or is it a natural progression?
Our audience like health. They like fitness. They want, they are into the wellness space. Right, NFT is it's more of a commodity trading, monetization space. So it's not a primary interest area for them. So if you were to do something that is around wellness, active living, getting fitter, stronger, and so on, I think definitely they will have a very strong interest. But being involved in NFT, we could probably be a bridge to help, bridge the understanding for them, educate them, and to get them into that space. And we shouldn't focus on the money part of it as well. Like for them, it's like, how does NFT help increase my racing experience, right?
Or the gamified, or the competitiveness, I don't know.
Yeah, or like how does NFT create a new experience for me to race that it may be in those areas. Like, as an example, if I buy a merchandise, you can link that with an NFT. So you have a physical and a digital copy of your merchandise that you bought. Some people just like to collect merchandise, right? Like for example, the Air Jordan shoes, they are highly tradable. So you have a physical asset that is highly tradable. Now imagine that physical asset is stamped with an NFT as well. So when somebody buys and sells, they know that it is authentic. They know that the digital copy and the physical copy are linked together. They know the journey of the physical copy, when it was created, who did it go to, and etc. and so on. So maybe similarly, there could be merchandise opportunities for us to explore as well. Again, it comes down to the tradability. Like if you have a product that's highly tradable, the demand is there, then NFT application becomes very strong. If not, it just becomes okay, I have a NFT, but what do I do with it? I'm not sure, but I'll just collect it, yeah.
So Santoz, we talked a lot about virtual races and NFTs in the future that technology can play in the health and wellness sector, and I guess in SCSM. But what is it in the last 2 years, having been here? What is it, do you think, that your community, your participations miss?
I don't know, in a very weird way, in a sense. I think people actually miss running past sweaty runners. They miss that feeling of having hundreds of people at the start line with them and thousands more behind them, right? And being shoulder to shoulder, that buzz, that energy, you can actually feel it, like people are there to race, people are there to beat their personal best timing, and that is that really goes through your body, and you feel that energy. People miss the festive of events, the music, having the MCs calling out and cheering the crowd and the vibe that it creates. I think people really miss that a lot. People miss running with friends, spending time. It's an activity with their friends or interest groups, and it's in a weird way. People just miss all these things. People miss having other sweaty runners with them.
That shared physical space.
That shared physical experience. And once you cross the finish line, of course, that is just a start, right? And as you're running, the pain, right, the challenges that you have. Like we've had stories of how runners will cramp halfway and other runners will come by and like, help them stretch, do all kind of things and help them out. That part of the community spirit, people miss it.
I remember those photographs.
Yeah, and people just miss having random, interactions that they have along the run. And people miss the celebration that happens after the finish line. You're crossing the finish line with people that you don't know, but you're all collectively feeling the same thing, that I'm achieving something together. And the celebration that follows after that. So it's really all these elements. You cannot replace these things. You cannot bring this into the digital world or the virtual space. It's a very isolated experience. Even though the number sounds big with 60,000 users on the platform, the 60,000 people are by themselves, in remote corners doing their own things. A physical in-person event brings 60,000 people together to run. It's a movement. It is an energy that flows through the city, and that is something that the community definitely misses, and we miss it. Like we miss seeing people welcoming, we miss seeing the pain in people's face, and then they finish the race and the joy and the smile. That really is the satisfaction of all the work that we put into the event.
So with that said, then what are some of the plans and goals of SCSM for 2022 and beyond?
Yeah. So as I said, when we started 21, we knew for sure it's going to be bigger than 20. Now I'll tell you it's going to be bigger than 21 for 22. How big? We have a very strong, I think, optimistic and positive situation right now. With like Formula One being announced, which is very good. We do feel and think we'll be able to return a full-scale event this year. Our hope is to have the 2-day road race, bringing back full marathon and half marathon that have been on pause for the last 2 years. Conversations have already started and we are working on it. In terms of logistics or in terms of that early decision making, we have the time to do it, right? Now we just have fingers crossed that no new variant. We just have fingers crossed that, in this game of snake and ladder, we don't hit a snake that brings us back to square one. If all things goes well, we should be able to bring the event back, and it is to do in stages as well, right? So it was a pause. Now we can't just sprint. We need to slowly get back into pace. So the focus is really bring the marathon, half marathon back, bring the community elements back, bring some of these fringe community events back.
Some of these fringe community events
like running clinics, in small group run clinics to help people prepare for marathon. We have training programs that we do with our partners as well. So those are elements that we're hoping to bring back. Running a marathon is not like I've registered and I'll just turn up and run. You need to go through that training phase. And we used to facilitate that as an in-person training run clinics as well. So we're hoping to bring all these things back. And these are all incremental improvements for the event and for the market. When we did SCSM last year with 4,000 participation, it was the biggest event in the last 2 years. As strange as it sounds, 4,000 was the biggest event in the last 2 years. So we hope to push the boundary further this year. That's really what we're hoping for. And then let's see how things fall into place, right? Let's see how VTL happens. Let's see how the rest of the world is evolving. Now we have a new scenario in play as well with all these geopolitical things that's happening, and whether it has any impacts on sports. That's another element to see. That plays a big part, especially on the elites or professionals and international flying in for running as well.
Yes, I was going to ask, will we be seeing the professional runs?
Yeah.
Will we be seeing the wheelchair runs, the races coming back?
That's something that we see it as add-on for now, because we really want to bring the event back for the community and let's bring racing back. If we can bring that element into play, then it's a bonus at this particular stage. But if you ask me the same question next year and we've done a full event this year, I say, yeah, of course, the race has returned. We should be working towards that as well. We're still working around unknowns right now, and maybe doing the base layer of bring the event back for the community should be the first priority. Have you had any feedback from your participants or your community? Are people so hungry to have the half marathon and the marathon back? People are like, when are we going to have it, right? So there's a huge demand. In fact, a lot of people are flying out to run races now. When the moment we open up, they're booking for marathons in Germany, in Japan, and people are going out to do races. So as races come back, I think that will be there. I think people want to fly into Singapore as well to experience. I always tell, like, travel has changed a lot. It's no longer about standing in front of Eiffel Tower, taking a selfie and going to a shopping center to buy luxury bags. It's about doing something as an experience, and running is part of that, right? So the whole run tourism has been also growing over the last few years, and I think it will come back very strongly this year. It's very different when you run a city. You run through the roads of the city and you see the city as you run. Like, I've taken part in overseas races, and it gives you a very different experience of feeling the city. And I think that will come back. Like, in our prime in 2019, we had almost close to 8,000 plus international runners coming in to run. So that's another thing that we are hoping to bring back as well this year. Yeah.
Wow. Now I feel like the excitement, the expectation is set for all of us for the Standard Chartered Singapore Marathon for 2022. So thank you so much for sharing with us today, Santoz. And we wish you all the best. We wish you good luck, good show, and we'll be waiting for the SCSM Singapore 2022.
Oh, thank you, Adele. I look forward to seeing you at the race, hopefully at the start line, and to run one of the categories.
You actually made me feel like I never thought I could, but like as this interview progressed, I feel like I would love to be a part of maybe the half marathon.
You definitely have to feel that energy at the start line. And then once you start, you have to feel that finish line experience as well, the celebration. So it is very, addictive. A lot of people will keep coming back, and I hope to see you many more years running with us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in today. We hope to see mass participation events coming back stronger this year in 2022. Make sure you join us on the next episode of ISSB for more sports business insights. Thank you to Santoz again and the IRONMAN team for supporting us today.